Everyone to our council meeting. I'll ask everyone to be upstanding for our opening prayer. Almighty God, we ask that you be present at this meeting to assist us in our service to the community through local government. We pray that our decisions will be wise and taken with goodwill and clear conscience. Amen. Item 2, councillor and officer presence at the meeting. We have 3 councillors, Councillor Scales, Councillor Anderson and Councillor Whitehead being myself. We have officers, we have our Chief Executive Officer, Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Director of Community and Planning, Director of Corporate and Organisational Development and our Deputy Director of Community. Apologies and granting of leave. We have apologies from Councillor Wortman and apologies from Councillor Dickshay. Any other apologies? No other apologies. So can I have a motion to accept those apologies? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to accept the apologies from Councillor Wortman and Councillor Dickshay.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. All in favour? Carried. Item 4 is disclosure of conflicts of interest. No disclosures. 5, confirmation of minutes from the special council meeting held on the 8th of May and the ordinary council meeting held on the 22nd of May. Can we have a motion confirming those minutes? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. The seconder. Councillor Scales. All in favour? Carried. Petition and joint letters. Nil. Public question time. No questions submitted. Informal meeting of councillors. Meeting records for the 24th of April, 8th of May and 22nd of May. Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the information be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. The seconder. Councillor Anderson. All in favour? Carried. 9, organisational improvement. Action sheet report. Happy to take that one as read. Any questions or clarification on the action sheet report? Would someone like to move a motion on the action sheet report? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. All in favour? Carried. 9.2's Audit and Risk Committee Charter Review. And I'll call on our Director of Corporate and Organisational Development.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to present the revised Audit and Risk Committee Charter, and in that is a recommendation, included in the changes, is to note that the chair for the Audit and Risk Committee be paid an additional amount per meeting in their allowance. And the recommendation is that the Audit and Risk Committee Charter as presented be adopted, and that the independent member allowance be set to 1.25% of the councillor allowance per meeting, effective from the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification on the Audit and Risk Committee Charter Review? Nothing. Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Scales. A seconder. Councillor Anderson. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. We get to 9.3 is Audit and Risk Committee Independent Member Appointment. We've got the CEO.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, as you're aware, we have a vacancy on our Audit and Risk Committee, and we also have an independent member whose term will be coming to an end shortly in September 2024. As a result, we've been undertaking a recruitment process for new members of the committee. It was quite pleasing. The Mayor and I were quite delighted to have such a strong field of candidates this time round, which is great for us. It hasn't always been that easy to get very good candidates, and we've gone through this process. So as a result of the recruitment process that we've been through, the Mayor and I are recommending that Caroline Rosetta Walsh be appointed to the committee from the 1st of August to the 31st of July 2028, and also that Mr Marcus Goonan be appointed to the Audit and Risk Committee for the 4-year period from 1st of August to 31 July 2028. And the Mayor may wish to say some words about the recommendation.
So I'd like to add that I think both those people that we're looking at appointing will bring great expertise in different areas, which will be of great benefit to council. We've been very lucky to be able to have the number of candidates that we have, that we've actually been able to look to fill where there might be gaps within the Audit and Risk Committee expertise, and believe we've been able to do that very successfully. And I know it won't get back to them, but it's great to see so many people apply for an Audit and Risk Committee at Towong. So it's and most of the candidates were very genuine in wanting to give back to community, and that's why they were wanting to be on an Audit and Risk Committee. And so I think that's a really great thing that we're moving to that sort of area where people are thinking about what can be given back to the community. So so if any questions or clarification on that from councillors?
Sorry, Mr Mayor,
Yep.
one further thing. Remiss of me not to suggest perhaps a second recommendation or an addition to this one, in order to thank Mr Spencer Rich and Ms Lorraine Murray for their service to the council.
So if there's nothing further, would someone like to move motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented, adding in the CEO's second point there as well.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Seconder, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to it at all, the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It is great to see that we've got very strong candidates applying to go on the Audit and Risk Committee. It has always been challenging to fill those positions, so it's great to see the skill sets coming through. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
In that case, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? No one's against? Carried. So we're up to 9.4, a records management policy, and I'll call on our Director of Corporate and Organisational Development.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to present a new policy for Council's consideration. Council has an obligation...
Did I skip one, Narelle?
Records management?
Records management? Is that what I said? Yep.
Yeah.
No, good, rightio. I thought I'd gone on to the next one. Sorry.
No, all good.
Yep.
Either that or I skipped the same one.
No, very good.
So Council has an obligation under legislation to maintain and keep corporate records. We're currently undertaking a project to progress our IT and records management processes and systems, and this policy will support that. So the recommendation is that the records management policy as presented be adopted, and that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to make minor administrative changes where necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on that policy? Nothing? Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Would you like to speak to that at all? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 9.5, policy management policy adoption. And again, I'll call on our Director of Corporate and Organisational Development.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to present a new policy for Council's consideration. So the name of the policy is a bit of a mouthful and certainly sounds very heavy, but I guess the purpose of bringing this policy has been identified in order to ensure that we have consistency in how we develop and manage our policies, so that our staff have a really clear framework around how they operate within council, within the guidelines of the Local Government Act, and within the expectations of council. So the recommendation is that the policy management policy as presented be adopted and that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to make minor administrative changes to the policy where necessary.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification on the policy management policy?
Thanks.
Councillor Anderson.
I just was looking at the name. Do you think we might be able to look at perhaps policy management protocol? Just a suggestion. What do the other councillors think? Or the director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I completely understand that the policy management policy is, I guess, a bit of a mouthful. We reflected on this in terms of, by nature, it is a policy. I understand the want for a different name. I guess I'm in your hands in terms of if you would like to change that.
Councillor Scales.
I suppose this is more of it's a question formed in a statement, I suppose, Mr Mayor, if you would indulge me. I struggle with policy management policy. It sounds very bureaucratic. And I appreciate Councillor Anderson's suggestion, but it's not a protocol. It actually is a policy that manages our policies. So, and I've tried to find other words for it myself, but I can't.
I guess it does explain what it is.
Look, it's really not that important.
No.
Just that
Yep.
protocol's what the structure that you're following. So I just thought, well, we might just unclunk it a little. But if you're happy, it's really not that important.
No. It's not going to make any difference to the policy.
No, and that's the important part.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
If there's no further questions or clarification, would someone like to move the motion?
Look, I'm happy to move that one.
Councillor Anderson.
As presented.
As presented. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Would either Councillor Anderson, Councillor Scales like to speak to it? I guess the only thing is I would say that for me, it blows my mind at times to see the amount of policies that we have at council, and so I completely understand why this policy is required, because just keeping track of all the policies is a challenge. So very happy to see that that's been implemented. And so we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Occupational health and safety report. And I'll call on our Director of Corporate and Organisational Development.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to provide a bi-monthly update to Council on the activities of the Occupational Health and Safety team. So the major occupational health and safety activities conducted during the period included the appointment of a manager for safety and risk, and progressing the action plan resulting from the OH&S systems audit conducted in January and February of 2024, and commencing the work on reviewing and developing the framework for risk management and the safety management system. So the recommendation is that the report be noted.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification? That report. Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to move the recommendation as presented.
And a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to that, or Councillor Anderson? Again, I'll just, one more little comment is that I think it's really exciting that we've now got a manager in to help out in the team with risk. It's be a huge benefit and be able to share the load a little bit more than what we could previously do. So I think that's a great appointment. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 9.7, quarterly performance reporting graphs. Is there anything to report? We'll take them as read, I think. Did anyone have any questions or clarification on the reporting graphs? No. Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. And a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Did you need to speak to that at all?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Nothing.
We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And 9.8, final budget report. And I'll call on our Director of Corporate and Organisational Development.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to present the budget 2024-25 for adoption. So at the Special Council meeting on 8th of May, following the resolution of Council, amendments were made to the Capital Works budget, and the Chief Executive Officer was authorised to make the draft budget available for public exhibition and invite public submissions. So in that time, there have been some minor amendments made. So there is a correction on page 26 to include the brackets to illustrate that we are indeed forecasting a deficit for 24-25. Page 51, there is the remaining budget from the skate park capital works carry forward can be removed. And in terms of the public submissions that were received, there were 4. 2 of them were received following the drafting of this report, and I'll quickly speak to them. So there was a request for the installation of a dump point at Eskdale. At the moment, we're unable to facilitate this request at this time, given the financial constraints in which we're operating. However, this has been included in the Capital Works request register for future consideration. There was another submission regarding rural property valuations, noting that valuations have increased significantly over the years from 2021 to 2023. This resulted in rural property holders' rating charges increasing significantly in that time and well in excess of the state government rate cap. So the submission suggested that rural properties have minus 11.5% applied to the rating charge for the next 3 years to correct that imbalance that has occurred. In response, I would note that Council has always complied with the rate cap requirements, noting that this cap is applied to the average rating charge per property, not for each individual property. So in the 2023-24 budget, Council recognised the impact that the valuation increase has had on rural property holders. And in that budget, the rating differential for rural rating category was reduced from 90% to 80%. And in recognition of the fact that that impact is still being felt, Council has, instead of reverting back to 90%, we've maintained it at 80%, and this will continue to balance out the preceding year's rating increases to rural properties. And we also note that the valuations are completed independently of council, and if residents if residents object to the valuation of the property, an objection to the valuation should be lodged by the deadline, which is 60 days from the date of the notice of assessment, which is typically the 1st of November each rating year. So that is an option that's available to all residents if they disagree with the valuation of their property. The third one is in relation to from the residents of Grania, expressing their gratitude for consideration of sealing our streets. So they are wanting to acknowledge that and thank us for including that in the budget. And the last one was in relation to a request for developing facilities for our animals in Tallangatta, identifying the Tallangatta hockey fields as a possible place to provide us an animal-safe area, and obstacles and training equipment for animals. In response, I guess similarly to the dump point, we haven't been able to allocate funds to this in the budget. We're obviously operating in a tight fiscal environment, as are most people. However, it has been noted for future consideration, and I would strongly encourage any residents that are interested in seeing this happen that they engage with the preparation of, the community engagement for the development of the council plan, which will happen post the elections later on this year. I think that covers everything. The recommendation is as presented.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification on any of that? Councillor Scales.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just note that on page 51, Tallangatta Skate Park is mentioned with a budget allocation of $3,000. Just wanting some clarification around that, as I thought that project had been completed.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that has been identified and will be corrected for the final budget that's uploaded, will be corrected to be removed, as that is no longer required, and that will be updated prior to uploading the final budget on the website.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr Mayor, I've got a couple. Also, we have playground renewal listed for Tallangatta and Galleon Parks. It was my understanding that we were deferring them, and perhaps it was going to be put into like an emergency renewal if required to any playgrounds after an audit.
Through you, Mr Mayor. That's correct. So it's not dedicated to replacing either of those playgrounds, and that description will be adjusted. We are getting a review of all the playgrounds done across the Shire, and we expect that will identify some equipment that needs replacing, and that's what that allocation is for.
Thank you.
Thank you. No? Any other questions or clarification? Someone like to move motion? Councillor Scales.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as presented, but adding a couple of items at the end. I'm sorry, I can't balance that and what the actual numbering, so I'll be guided on the numbering. But I'm pretty sure they can just go at the end. Nothing major. Just, I'd like to add an additional point that Council acknowledges the tenuous financial position that the Council may be in the next several years if increased funding for road renewal, infrastructure, community services and organisational operations does not increase significantly. The Council also acknowledges that where a major increase in funding does not occur, services and infrastructure renewal will have to be cut, or a significant increase to the rate cap will need to be applied for. And a further point, is that council staff across the entire organisation be thanked for the preparation of the 2024-2025 budget. It's a significant undertaking, dealing with a very tight financial situation that we find ourselves in. In fact, we've been in a very tight financial situation for the 12 years I've been on council. It's a very, very difficult balancing act, and whilst we are projecting a budget deficit of $1.9 million, I have seen a number of... Sorry, I'm talking to the motion. I'll just
Well,
thank the staff for the significant effort in preparing the budget, and I'll leave my speech for later.
yeah. Well picked up, Councillor Scales. I was going along with you quite well there for a while, but do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'd almost think I'd set it up there, Mr. Mayor. Look, once again, number one, to thank the staff for the significant effort that has gone into this. I know the effort that's involved just in reading the budget, and we don't have to prepare the budget. Obviously, we have our advice and we have the projects that we want to see that have come through the council plan, and the staff do an amazing job of trying to fit in the delivery of the council plan, and our ambitious council plan, I should add, into the very tight financial situation we find. So I feel that staff really need to be thanked. We're the first ones to whack them around the ears at times if we're not happy. So it's pretty unfair of us at times, because they're doing their best to deliver within the financial constraints that we are in. I think I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to thank the staff, because some of us asked some pretty strange, or not strange questions, but you give us a good understanding of feeling comfortable with where we're going, which is going to be difficult. But you answer the questions. All the staff have done a terrific job, so thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the people who took the time to put in the submissions, so we get some sort of feedback on what people are thinking as well. But most importantly, we're doing it tough, residents are doing it tough. Please don't forget, if you're in trouble paying your rates, please get in contact with council. It's really important, so we can all work together. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? None against? Carried. And 9.9, we've got sale of land, 8 Boundary Street, and I'll call on our Director of Corporate and Organisational Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek confirmation that the vacant land at 8 Boundary Street in Corryong is no longer required by council, and accordingly a decision that the land be sold. So the development of 6 one-acre lots in Corryong was undertaken in 2002 by council. 4 of the 6 lots are now in private ownership, leaving 2, number 6 and number 8, which is vacant, remaining in council's ownership. The purpose of creating the industrial subdivision was that they would be available for private interests to purchase, with a view to the establishment and or expansion of commercial or industrial enterprises. During April and May, a notice of intention to sell was placed on council's website in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act, and no objections were received. And so the recommendation is that the land at 8 Boundary Street in Corryong, being surplus to council's needs, be sold, that the land be sold by an expression of interest process for a price no less than a valuation held by council, and that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to sign and seal all documents relating to the sale of the land in accordance with Local Law 1, Common Seal and miscellaneous penalties.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification? Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, do you want to speak to that at all?
No, thank you.
Councillor Scales?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
I can say anyone else like to speak to it? I guess that's me. I think it's exciting. My understanding is that there has been some interest in the block, and so I think, you know, new industry for the Corryong area is a exciting thing. So I'm very happy that we're actually getting the opportunity to sell this block to try and create more business. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Now, we've got to 10.1. Which is a swimming pools report, and I'll call on our Deputy Director of Community.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the performance of the pools over the previous season, and also to provide some recommendations to make some changes that will support ongoing participation, but also to maximise council's budget investment into the facilities. So you can see in the report that generally the pools performed very well. Participation numbers were up at both pools. The transition to the new contractor, whilst had some challenges, has been considered to be appropriate, and we look forward to ironing out any of the issues that were identified, and recommend that the opening of the pools be delayed for 2 weeks, and the other significant one is to increase the hours of operation during January to match the temperature and the increased participation at that time. So the recommendation is there as reported.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification? Councillor Scales.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So as we know, our swimming pools do run at a significant loss. We've just got a ballpark figure of what this financial year's losses may look like, or the current financial year's losses may look like.
Yeah, so the budget adopted was around about 260,000, which included the management fee for the new contractor, and we anticipated at the close of this financial year would be just under that.
Thank you.
Any further questions or clarification? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move a motion different to the officer recommendation. I'd like to include points 1, 2 and 4, or basically striking out point number 3, being that the opening hours 11 AM to 7 PM of both pools in January be extended to accommodate higher visitation levels and usual warmer temperatures at an additional cost of approximately $16,000 in salaries, potentially offset by higher income from increased visitation and sales. So just removing point 3.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I spoke earlier, in the budget we are in a very tight financial position, and I feel that contributing a further $16,000 towards the pools at this stage would not be financially responsible of the council. I do understand that our swimming pools are a very important community asset, and that it is one of our obligations to provide this. However, we do provide a reasonable level of access to the swimming pools, as it is identifying that we have shown a saving there or a potential saving of $8,000, but in those times the pools were used at a very, very minimal level anyway, so that was basically throwing money into a swimming pool, let's say. I'll leave it at that, Mr Mayor. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I'd like to thank the staff for preparing this report. as we know, there's a lot of work goes into these. It might just look like it's an idea, but there's not. There's significant work that goes on in the background of this, and I feel bad by knocking, some of the suggestions on the head, but as I said earlier, we've got to make difficult decisions as councillors and looking after our finances. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to that?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, in this climate, it's probably a very wise decision. It is a community service, which is very, very important to our residents. So we just need to keep reviewing, I expect, and try and get the best that we can with the money that's available to us. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I probably have a... No one else want to speak to it? I know, it's only me left. So I see we've saved 8,000 and we're looking at spending an extra 16. I'd like to get us back to even to where we were. I think I'd like the option, and I guess I'm asking for clarification, and it's really hard at this point of a meeting, but I don't quite understand what the consequences of that motion will be. Will that still allow us to, on hot days, to open for longer, or is that part of the motion you were thinking, Councillor Scales, or is it? I don't know where that fits in that.
Yeah, I'll answer that one for you, I think, Mr Mayor. It's definitely not my intention to say that we won't increase hours on extremely hot days, as has been the process that council has always followed. If there are extremely hot days, etc., we have always opened the pools for longer hours, which I think is part of a policy we have adopted, or it's definitely a process that council have gone through over the years, and I by no means want to impact on that. I'm just suggesting that we do not do the increase in hours as suggested.
I'm happy with that. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. (10.2) Emergency management, and again I'll call on our Deputy Director of Community.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of the report is to note the activities of Emergency Management Unit over the previous period of time. The appendix clearly shows that the activities continue, covering activities like community emergency management plans, some training in terms of staff in their psychosocial training, and a whole range of other activities. And the unit, whilst being down a little bit in resource for that period, has achieved quite well, and the recommendation is that the report be noted.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification on that report? No? Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to that at all?
No, thank you.
Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank the officer for the report, and I'd just like to note that whilst it's not in the report, but the timeliness of some of our emergency recovery response that does occur, including a very recent one, where our staff are basically working 24/7 if an emergency occurs, and I think the staff should be commended on their dedication. And as our Deputy Director of Community mentioned, it is not highly resourced emergency recovery, and in the future state and federal governments need to look at further resourcing for local government for emergency response. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. (10.3) Community Sport Fair Access Policy, and again I'll call on our Deputy Director Community.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to have Council consider the final version of the Fair Access Policy, and this is as a result of community consultation that Council authorised at a previous meeting. No submissions were received. The report indicates how important this policy is in terms of accessing grants for sport and rec facilities, but also, more importantly, the focus on increasing access for women and girls into sporting activities, including into roles of management and coaching, etc. So the report is recommended to Council.
Any questions or clarification on that report? Nothing. Someone like to move a motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. A seconder? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to that at all? Councillor Anderson.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
I'd just like to add that onto what our Deputy Director Community just spoke about, and the importance of this for being able to apply for grants, but also in the inclusion of women and girls to play sport within our municipality. I think it's a very important part of what we're trying to achieve, and we have quite a few different recreation reserves and sporting bodies that this will apply to, and I think it's a really important move, so it's great to see this come about. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Uh, 10.4, our Town Towards 2030, and we'll call on our Director of Community and Planning.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is the presentation and final adoption of the 5 place plans that are a result of the Our Town Towards 2030 project, and those towns were Bellbridge, Pathanga, Corryong, Midart and Tallangatta. As you'll note from the papers, this project is almost 2 years in the making, and has had quite extensive community engagement to really reimagine a future opportunities and a range of projects and initiatives for 5 of our major towns, and really will help, I guess, facilitate future funding opportunities and projects, some of which require extensive funding and some that could be community-led. I particularly wanted to note the very wide community engagement profile that is associated with this project. It's not without its costs. I'm really thankful to Emergency Recovery Victoria that did make this project possible through bushfire recovery funding, because we were able to have almost over 4,000 separate community engagements with people to put these plans together. So we're really looking forward to seeing the plans be implemented, and the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification on those place plans? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor, I would. The place plans were, as our director has mentioned, were at Bellbridge, Bethanga, Corryong-Mitta and Toolingatta, and there was a lot of work that went into it, so thank you to the staff, directors. It was really good. The consultation was amazing, but the responses were good too. It was large numbers, so that helps us as councillors just so much. So very grateful to the community and to staff. And it was interesting to see some similarities right across the board on sustainable housing and increased supply, all the different things that people were looking for in their communities into the future. So thank you to everyone concerned. It was a big job and well done.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, 2 years, almost 2 years in the making. Huge effort, and have 4,000 separate engagements is absolutely amazing. That's nearly, if you look at our population, it's almost touching every person across the whole Shire. And a lot of this definitely didn't include the entire Shire. As we know, we've got a lot of other villages and towns across the Shire. It's a very exciting time to see this being adopted. As we know, we're going to need some significant funding to implement some of these items, and unfortunately I can't see it happening, or the big items coming off in the next few years, especially with the state of the federal and state budgets. And that's just a flag to the communities that we'll try to achieve these options, but it's a very tight financial position that we are in. But there's some easy tick items there too, that if the community embrace this and get involved along with council, we will see successes into the future. Once again, a significant amount of work, and the staff need to be thanked highly for their work.
Thanks,
Thank
Councillor.
you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. I'd just like to add that I think it's really important to get plans like this in place, because it actually sets us up for the future. It might not be in the next couple of years, but the plans are now there. So it might be. We hope we can be successful, but you know, it sets us up for the future as to what we need to be looking for. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 11.4. I've been 11.1. Yeah, rightio. I better skip down and find that. A bit easier. 11.1's asset management, discontinuance of section of road 1835 Thowgler Road, Thowgler Valley. And I'll call on our Director of Infrastructure and Environment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's approval to commence the statutory process to close a road reserve. Just to note that this piece of road reserve does not have a physical road on it at the moment. And unfortunately there's a building, a shed of a neighbouring property that has been slightly built across the property boundary, which happens from time to time. And they are trying to resolve this particular issue. And the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification? No. Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. A seconder. Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to that at all? Councillor Scales.
No, thanks, Mr.
Nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 11.2, streetscape plans. And again, I'll call on our Director of Infrastructure and Environment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the streetscape plans for Cudgewa, Tintaldra and Towong townships for Council's consideration and adoption. So whilst the master planning for the major towns was going on, we're also working on consulting with the communities in our smaller towns about what the future of their towns would look like. And we have presented these for consideration and adoption. There was an extensive amount of community engagement, but in a different style to what we did for the bigger towns, recognising that these towns have been impacted by bushfires and that the communities were fatigued. So there was a project manager appointed to reach out to community members and to not necessarily hold big public meetings, but to reach out to key stakeholder groups and individuals within each of these towns and then get them together over 3 rounds of consultation to discuss the draft plans and then the final plans and then to seek feedback on what they wanted to see. And the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification? Nope. Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. And a seconder. Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to the report?
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Motion?
Once again, just thank you to the staff for taking into consideration the different communities and how we consult. And I hear the numbers were pretty good, is that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, I would say that we've engaged with almost everyone in these small towns on some degree. Obviously, they have small populations, but yes.
That's fabulous, thank you. It's really good to see, and did I hear you correctly saying 3 lots of different consultations? It's an enormous amount, so congratulations to the team and staff. It's been a job well done, thank you.
Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Fully endorse Councillor Anderson's comments there. And yeah, congratulations on the engagement process on this one as well. As we know, engagement's a difficult thing and we really need the community to engage so that we can take on their ideas and suggestions. But engagement across the Shire is different in different communities. So there's different ways of engaging with different areas within our Shire. And I think we're starting to work out the best engagement processes in different areas. It's a great to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. This is my 8th year on council, and it's something that we've been working through over that time, is getting to all our little towns as well to do some work in those, and it's great to see another 3 that we're getting some planning done for. So it's been a long journey and a lot of work, and but we're getting there. So thank you very much to all the staff for all their work in relation to that. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? None against? Carried. 11.3's Lake Road Culvert Extension, tender evaluation, and I reckon I'm going to call on our Director of Infrastructure and Environment again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information to support the assessment of tender submissions for the Lake Road Bridge remediation. To note that this is a long time coming. Obviously we had floods in 2022 and the bridge was washed away actually, and the road has been closed and down to 1 lane for quite a long time. It has taken this long for us to negotiate funding to support the upgrade of this bridge, and that is a process that all councils go through in order to access the federal disaster recovery funding. I'm really glad that we're at this point, and the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you very
Procedural
much.
motion, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
Could I please move that we have a recess?
Yep. Do we need a seconder? Yep. All in favour? Carried. So thank you very much, and we'd like to resume our meeting. We're on 11.3 Lake Road Culvert extensions. And have we got any questions or clarification on the report? Councillor Scales.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that the recommendation is to award the contract to Excel Grade Marine Proprietary Limited. Just wondering how they are situated to deliver the project. I'm sure they've got a lot of projects going on, and just wondering how they are situated to deliver this project.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So Excel Grey have indicated that they have a number of teams. Obviously, they are working on some different projects for us at the moment. This is their core business around civil construction, and we're quite confident that they will be able to set up a team to deliver this project in a timely fashion.
Thank you.
Any further questions or clarification? Someone like to move motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, would you like to speak to the motion at all?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to say I'm very pleased also to see this one get across the line, and I can tell you that the community will be as well. So thank you very much, and it'll be good to see it get going. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, if there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 12's land use planning, 12.1 land use planning report, and I'll call on our Deputy Director of Community.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with an update on the activity within the land use planning unit. You'll notice on the appendix it gives particular details of metrics in terms of number of the permits, types of permits, and the reporting on processing of the permits. May's been a consistent month. With 1 month to go of the financial year, it's quite pleasing to see the performance of the unit compared to the previous financial year is significantly improved, and I think those sort of numbers would be the envy of a lot of our counterparts in different parts. So the report is there for your noting.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification on the land use planning report? Nothing. Would someone like to move motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As mentioned by our Deputy Director of Community, we are in a bit of an enviable situation with our turnover and how quickly we are now turning over planning permits. We know we had a period there where we had some difficulties and it took a while, but we are in a really good position at the moment, and that's due to the dedication of the team. The team, when we're talking about 1.5 people or something. So yeah, it's great to see that we're in such a position. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Nothing, Mr Mayor.
So I'd actually just like to add to that as well, Councillor Scales, that we've definitely been in a position where we weren't happy with the results we were getting, and there's been a lot of work done in the team to change the way we've gone about our planning process, and we're now seeing the benefits of that. So it's been over a period of time, but the work that's been done, we're now seeing the benefits, and it's a much better place to be going. And as a councillor, if we went back a couple of years, we were getting quite a few phone calls on planning issues. We're not getting, well, I'm not getting the same level of contact on that. So congratulations to all the team in the planning department. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And we've got 12.2 structure plans, and I'll call on our Director of Corporate and Planning, Community and Planning. Golly, getting on the wrong one.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is presenting the draft structure plans for Tallangatta, Corryong and Belbridge. This is really the first of the stages post our towns that really proposes some updates to our planning scheme to actually underpin what sits in those plans. So it's wonderful to have these two pieces of work together and seeing the first of many of those pieces of work. I particularly wanted to thank Tompkinson, who did this project in partnership with us. They were able to really quickly work through some community consultation and get a good draft. Unlike most structure plans that happen around the state, we have taken a different approach to developing these structure plans, where we've done consultation prior to putting them up as a proposal for a scheme amendment to the Minister. And as such, you will see from the recommendation, you are not adopting these per se as final drafts, you're adopting them as drafts. And then the intention is to write to the Minister and request that a planning scheme amendment can be made, which would include these drafts. Following that, you will go through a process that is run by the state government where community members will still have the opportunity to provide feedback, but we're very confident with the engagement processes that have happened to date that what is put in front of you reflects the majority of the community, granted that in any land use planning situation you can't ever please everyone. So the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification? No?
Just go for a second, sorry.
We'll just take a
Sorry.
quick recess from Interpol. So we're back on again. Everyone's back in the land of the living. So we've 12.2 structure plans, Tallangatta, Bellbridge and Corryong. The director's just presented. Any questions or clarification on the report that's been presented? Councillor Scales.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it was presented that we did do significant community consultation throughout this process, and that we are only adopting a draft of this. Can you just, and it was briefly outlined in your report, but can you outline the number of engagement processes that can occur after this stage still with the community, or community input into it?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So depending on what process sort of happens in general, what usually happens is you write to the minister, and assuming the minister grants a request that you can move to an amendment, they will actually go through a process either with a panel or not. The panel includes a group of experts that will look at what's being proposed and give their views, and also seek formal submissions as part of that process. And usually that's a combination between formal, written, and they sometimes have hearings depending on the nature of it. It just depends on kind of what, how, probably, where the sort of sense is with the community as to what ends up happening. But that's sort of a formalised process that state government runs. There's nothing preventing council from doing further engagement should you want to do it, but the key thing is having that initial step to write to the minister to sort of commence the proceedings, because it's probably at least a 12-month period thereafter to go through the whole process to getting it into a planning scheme, and it might be even a little bit more.
Thank you.
Any further questions or clarification? Would someone like to move motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. A seconder. Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Wow, significant amount of work's gone into this, and that's why our agenda or our appendices are so large this month. Yeah, look, this is really setting us up for the future, setting up the Shire for the future, or these towns especially. It just show the way we see these townships growing, and it's a very exciting time. As we know, regional Victoria has huge demand for growth. We don't necessarily have the zoning at the moment in place to accommodate that growth. So this is getting us in a position to accommodate the growth sustainably. Yeah, it's great to see, and I do believe that this may be our director's final report that she's providing to us. I know she's been a driver of this, Amanda. Thank you very much, and of course the rest of the team. But I know you have been extremely passionate about these structure plans. So thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll try. I too would like to thank Amanda for the work that's gone into this, and in particular the initiative to do the consultation first and engaging our community straight away, so they're on board all the way through, and that they understand that they still have an opportunity to come back. So fantastic. It's a great program. It's looking into the future. And thank you. All the best.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing further, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Exciting times. Environmental sustainability. 13.1's Circular Economy and Environment Report Director of Infrastructure and Environment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides a quarterly update on environmental sustainability activities throughout the Shire for the period of December 23 to March 24. I think to note what has happened in the main thing that has happened, I guess, in all of this rollout is the introduction of the FOGO bins, food and garden organic bins. We're now in week 5 of that introduction period, and I guess I'd like to thank the community for their patience in us implementing this new service, as there has been some teething problems as we start to introduce a new contractor and roll out bins and educate people on different days for collection. But we're now seeing an improvement in the rollout of that since we first started, and I think that's testament to the work that the team has been doing in the background. And the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification, councillors? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted, and I'll add a second point, I suppose I can. Yep, that we note the report, number 1. Number 2, that the team be thanked for the amount of work that is occurring in this space, and indeed with the delivery of the new 3-bin waste system and dealing with some of the, I won't say issues, I'll start a debate again. We thank the team and the community.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think I previously started, Mr Mayor, once again. Yeah, look, thank you to the team. It would have been trying bringing in the 3-bin system. There was a lot of promotion of how the system would work, etc. But things do fall through the gaps at times. My understanding is that the team has been extremely responsive to any ratepayers that have contacted council where a bin may have been missed or bins hadn't been delivered by the contractor that was there to deliver the bins. So all I've had is positive feedback from the community if there has been a small issue come up with the rollout. So yeah, congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson. I'd just like to add that I think as time goes, things will get better and better with the rollout as well. I have to put my hand up and say I missed my garbage bin this week. So it happens to all of us, and but it's a change of time and a change of route, and so it's as we spend more time, things will get better and better. So congratulations and thank you. So we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 14's Economic and Tourism Development, and 14.1's Great River Road Marketing Plan. And we're going to call on our Deputy Director of Community.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to articulate the developments associated with the Great River Road project. You'd be aware that the Great River Road's been subject to a lot of investment from government and council, particularly in stage 2 with focus on capital works along the whole length of the road. Stage 2 of the funding agreement we have is has a requirement that a substantial marketing and promotion plan be developed, and this report identifies the importance, given the relationships with various parties associated with the development of the plan, and also in stage 1, it's important that we continue to move forward, and whilst this recommendation is a departure from our usual procurement policy, the option of having a pre-purchase package for the marketing and promotion plan is considered to be appropriate, and therefore the recommendation is as stated there. I would note that Council may want to consider, in considering the recommendation, may want to consider the need to move into confidential.
Any questions or clarification? No? Would someone like to move a motion?
Is this one the confidential items?
Do you want to move into confidential to discuss further? Councillor Scales?
I'd like to move a motion that we close the meeting to the press and public, please, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. A seconder? Councillor Anderson. All in favour? Carried. So we're back on. Has someone move a motion to resume, restore? Councillor Anderson and Councillor Scales. All in favour? Carried. Rightio, so we're on Great River Road Marketing Plan, 14.1. We have a recommendation in front of us. Is there any further questions or clarification required? Would someone like to move motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Scales. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion at all?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Anderson.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
The only thing I'd like to add is I think it's exciting times where the Great River Road project's been under development for quite a few years, and to now be getting to the stage where we can do marketing and promotional work is very exciting. So congratulations to all the team that's been involved in Great River Road. If there's nothing further, I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Uh, 15's council reports, and we've got a report from Councillor Anderson. Did you like to speak to that at all, Councillor Anderson, or are you happy with that?
With that, thanks.
Would someone like to move the report? Maybe that's... That the report be noted. Councillor Anderson. And a seconder, Councillor Scales. Didn't want to speak to that. And Councillor Scales. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Urgent business. Do we have any urgent business? Councillor Scales.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move one item of urgent business, being the Wild Dog Program. I believe that this is an urgent item of business and cannot wait until our next ordinary meeting of council, because this is an evolving situation that our agricultural industry find themselves in and needs immediate attention. Thank you.
Very good. Would someone like to move that we accept an item of urgent business? Councillor Anderson. And the seconder, Councillor Scales. All in favour? Carried. Councillor Scales, I think we'll open the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, I think it's the first item of urgent business I've ever admitted. There may have been one years ago. I would like to move, Mr Mayor, that Council invest in an immediate advocacy plan to the Victorian State Government that, number one, State Government continue funding for the continuation of the Victorian Wild Dog Program without change, and increase reporting on the program outcomes. Number two, the 3 kilometre buffer zone for controlling wild dogs be retained without alteration. Number three, all control measures currently available to doggers be retained without alteration. Number four, the annual publishing of the number and location of wild dogs euthanised by doggers, and stock losses by community members in relation to wild dog attacks be made publicly available. And number five, that Council submit a notice of motion to the Municipal Association of Victoria for the next State Council meeting to this effect, as well as urging Rural Councils Victoria to also advocate on this position. Point 6, that funding of $2,000 from the Recovery and Resilience Fund be provided to the local Wild Dog Action Group to engage with the traditional landowners regarding this current situation. And point 7, that further funding required for this advocacy plan also come from the Recovery and Resilience Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scales. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Anderson, thank you. Councillor Scales, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, we find ourselves, or the agricultural sector, I should say, in a very difficult position at the moment. Wild dog attacks are huge and have not just an impact on the finances and the welfare of animals, but the welfare of the farmer as well. The current wild dog management program involves professionally trained wild dog controllers that work on private land and a small portion of government land within the 3 kilometre livestock protection buffer zone, which is only 1.6 million of the 4.7 million hectares of public lands in east and northeast of the state. This leaves over 3.1 million hectares of public lands, including state forest and national parks, for wild dogs to roam. Wild dogs are killers of both native wildlife, domestic livestock, pets, and even guardian animals, as well as a threat to public safety and a biosecurity risk. All other states in Australia classify wild dogs as a feral pest and actively seek to remove them from the ecosystem through coordinated efforts, similar to what is currently in place in Victoria. As Victorian farmers, we simply wish for the wild dog control program to continue as currently operating, as it has reduced livestock losses by 75% since its inception. The Wild Dog Protection Program order was renewed on the 1st of October 2023 for a period of only 12 months, and this was from pressure by groups such as the North East Wild Dog Action Group. The Victorian Government promised consultation and further research, but there has been no consultation and nothing shared regarding the research, but a sudden announcement to scrap the program in the Northwest and offer $500,000 budgeted for the whole agricultural community to restructure their relationship with wild dogs. Also, dingoes in northwest Victoria on both public and private land are now protected. A farmer or landowner in the northwest has had all rights taken from them and now cannot touch, harm or kill a wild dog, even if it's attacking their livestock. There's a lot of fear that the government could choose not to renew the management program on the eastern side of the state as well. That is our patch that we live in. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson, would you like to add anything? So I'd like to thank Councillor Scales for bringing this item of urgent business. I definitely believe it is very urgent that we progress this to the state government. Being a farmer myself, it's probably very close to me. I would have never gone 1 year without losses to wild dogs with the sheep I have, and I think it's important to note not only the effect that has on the livestock and the productivity of the farming operation, but also the mental health and well-being of the farmers involved. So I thank Councillor Scales for bringing this motion. And if there's nothing further, I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Item 17's committee minutes, Audit and Risk Committee meeting on the 28th of May. Call on our Director of Corporate and Organisational Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So This report is to present an update following the most recent Audit and Risk Committee meeting. So the minutes have been circulated separately prior to this meeting. The resolutions made by the committee, other than those that were for noting, were in relation to the Audit and Risk Committee charter, that the update on the Audit and Risk Committee membership be noted, and that the proposed annual work plan be endorsed. The recommendation is that the unconfirmed Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes and resolutions from 28th of May 2024 be noted.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification, councillors? Someone like to move motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be noted.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. A seconder. Councillor Scales. Councillor Anderson. Councillor Scales.
No, thanks.
Well, put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 17.2's OH&S committee minutes. And again, I'll call on our Director of Corporate and Organisational Development.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to provide information. The unconfirmed minutes of the most recent Occupational Health and Safety Committee meeting that was held on the 14th of May have been provided to councillors prior to the meeting, which outlines all of the topics discussed and the actions that were taken. So the recommendation is as presented.
Thank you very much. Any questions or clarification? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Scales.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to move the recommendation as presented.
A seconder. Councillor Anderson. Would you like to speak? Councillor Anderson, speak to that? No. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 18's council policies. 18.1's policies for adoption. We have the credit card policy. Any questions or clarification? We'll take that as... Happy to take that as read, yeah. Any questions or clarification on that policy? Pretty straightforward. Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. A seconder. Councillor Scales. Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Sealing of documents. Nil. Confidential. Nil. Closure of meeting. Not quite. We've got one more little thing to do, and that is that it's our Director of Community and Planning's last meeting with us, and I'd like to thank her very much for all her efforts over quite a difficult journey over the last 4.5 years. Amanda, you came in at a very difficult time, and if I can speak on behalf of the Upper Murray community in particular, they were very thankful that you did come at that time and that the work you did was exceptional, and to land on your feet the way you did was a credit to you, and also I guess the team around you. But when you're up there in that situation, you've got to think on your feet pretty well, and you did that exceptionally well. And we've had quite a few challenges since that time with COVID and lots of different things. I do have a quick message here I'd like to read out from Councillor Wortman, who was an apology today. And so Councillor Wortman said, "I would like to thank Amanda for all the great work she has achieved in her time at Towong. Amanda's director's portfolio of community and planning covers a diverse range of services and roles we provide to our communities. The feedback I've received from all over our shire is that our communities really like Amanda and enjoy working with her. She is friendly and very approachable." A quick list of her achievements: the bushfire emergency and he's got him bragged. So Amanda will never forget this, 2 weeks into the directorship. The bushfire recovery process itself, COVID response, early years learning, numerous master plans, Bellbridge Boathouse project, tourism strategies, telecommunication and connectivity, developing our RAP, last but not least, planning and strategic planning. There are many more achievements I could add to this list. Amanda's legacy is that so much of her hard work will benefit our communities and council for many years into the future. In finishing, I would like to wish Amanda all the best in a new role at DOT, and you will be greatly missed here at Towong, and I'm sure that that goes for all councillors and probably staff as well. But so thank you very much, Amanda. We're sad to see you go, but very excited for you about the next stage of your work life. So thank you. Anyone else like to add anything to that before I close the meeting?
Oh, why not? Not that I can add much. I think between yourself and Councillor Wortman summed it up. Like 4.5 years came into a baptism of fire, literally. And it's definitely, as mentioned by Councillor Wortman, it's definitely not just the Upper Murray that have high, very, very high regards for you, Amanda. I know it's right throughout the Midder Valley as well. Your approachableness and the way that the ratepayer feels that they can communicate with yourself and your team is really highly regarded. And yet you'll be definitely missed at Towong. You're welcome back.
Thank you.
I may as well too now. Just one more. Just being a new councillor, and I know Pete would be thinking the same, thank you very much for your assistance to us as newbies. We really appreciate it. And all of the very, very best. We will miss you. Thank you.
So thanks, Amanda. Thanks, everyone. Council meeting closed. Let's
Party.